As we enter week 14 in the National Football League, as always, the coaching hot seat gets a little hotter, and we start talking about more coaches that are likely to be gone and who we're hearing from, and all of those good things. So, Jason,
Yeah,
your seat's starting to get a little hot there.
hot.
Who
I'm
right
getting
now?
getting a lot of heat off the monitor here, Beltway Ben.
It's that time of the
But I
year. I mean,
need it because it's
we're in
like 20
December.
degrees here in Baltimore.
It is. It absolutely is. And it is like that in a lot of different places. But one place where it's not, Miami. It's always warm there.
Yeah,
But the seat for that guy, somehow people are trying to say it's cooling down and
I think it
they might
actually
be
might
buying
be.
into.
I think owners talk to owners, and that's when you kind of start to get a feel for what might be happening. And then owners talk to their team presidents and talk to people in business circles, and things have a way of trickling out. And I don't think that Stephen Ross is totally ready to give up on Tua. And if he's keeping Tua, then I think he's keeping McDaniel. Now, I mean, look, if they go into a funk and they don't win any more games, that's a different story. If Tua goes into the offseason with any sort of, further head injuries or anything like that, that could be a different story. But yeah, I think I do believe that McDaniel has created an opportunity for himself to remain the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And when they fired Chris Greer as their GM, I did not think that a lane existed for that to happen, even if they won some ugly football games. And since then, really all they've done, Ben, is win some ugly football games. But that the quarterback climate that's out there, the position they're going to be in vis-a-vis the draft and the ability to just have one fall in their laps, that's probably not going to happen. They're winning too many games for that. Um, and an owner who's churned through a fair amount of people, um, I do believe he could keep him. I also believe that's a huge mistake. And if he keeps him, I guarantee you and I are doing a video by Thanksgiving of next year talking about the interim head coach of the Dolphins and who their next real head coach is going to be.
Well, that's where I'm at. I don't understand if he couldn't do it when that offense was explosive and they had just added Tyreek Hill and they were so damn good in the heat, but all of a sudden you play in the cold and you can't figure it out. And I mean, the coach is to blame in all of those spots. And you could talk about Tua, we could talk about a lot of different things. But what's going to change from right now, December 5th, until in the offseason? Like, they're not adding anything to help figure this guy out. You already brought in Anthony Weaver, who was a veteran. He was around a lot of good teams in Baltimore. He was supposed to fix the defense, and it's been fine, but it hasn't been great. And that's not going to be anything carrying that team. Tyreek Hill is probably not going to be in Miami next year, whether it's because of
No.
retirement or going elsewhere. I just don't know really what's going to change with this team.
Yeah, I mean, look, they probably throw some more money at the defense. I mean, what's changed is Chris Greer, and I don't think Chris Greer was a particularly adept or adroit or malleable NFL GM. And I think he was a little stuck in his ways. And um, look, he had an inelastic relationship with his job. The results were poor, but he kept it and kept getting extensions. And owners will do that, and they have cozy relationships with certain people in the front office, and allows them to stay in power longer than they should. So that's what's going to change, and that's what they'll say is going to be different. New sets of eyes making these decisions. It's just going to be ironic because they let Wilkins and a bunch of their better defensive players leave the building a few years back, and my guess is they're going to be paying C plus B minus free agents like they're B plus A minus free agents, because that's what you have to do, trying to plug the same holes for people that they left leave the building, offensive and defensive line.
Now, sticking with that division, weeks ago we talked on here, we talked about Aaron Glenn and what was going on there. Could it be a one and done from him? Since he's won a game, right? They beat the Falcons, but the quarterback play is still not good. We don't really know what the future is there, and they've got a lot of injuries. They sold big time at the deadline. Do you think Aaron Glenn is the guy that they stick with through this rebuild?
I could absolutely see a scenario where Aaron Glenn isn't back. And this is the time of year where people are back channeling. I guess in a lot of cases, it's frankly tampering. But do I think Woody Johnson's going to get through back channels an idea of what big power broker NFL coaching agents think of his job and how some of their candidates how open they might be to taking that job, even though you don't have a quarterback on the roster right now, and even though um, they're devoid of blue chip talent. But what they do have, Beltway Ben, is they're loading up on some draft chips, right? They obviously made the Quentin Williams trade. They made the Sauce Gardner trade. I wouldn't still not be surprised if they made a Garrett Wilson trade in the offseason. And so, can you sell someone on obviously a big market? Maybe the Bills aren't what they used to be. Yeah, the Patriots look like they're pretty good. Um, but come on down and be the guy to win, to win with Gang Green and all these draft picks we're going to have and a shot at a quarterback. Yeah, if you made me handicap that situation right now, Beltway, Ben, I'd still say, you know, 59 to 63% chance that somebody else is their coach next year.
Yeah, I like the percentage there. I like that you moved
Yeah,
it. It's a
I try
good.
to be precise.
Yeah, I like that. Well, that's what we always are here at Wanna Bet, giving
Mm-hmm.
out bets and just talking sports. Now, we did just talk about the Jets, and I said, they did win a game recently, and that was against the
Yes.
Falcons, against another coach that is probably on the hot seat, and Raheem
He gone.
Morris has to be. I mean, when you look at what's
Gone.
going on there, the issues they have going, way too loyal. I mean, he's just way too loyal of a guy when you have a lot of struggles underneath him and he just stands by his staff and won't move on from any of these guys. We have all the special team struggles and they've continued to get in their own way. And on paper, this team is far more talented than what
Yes.
we've seen. They're like the 3-2 team that started the year compared to what they've been lately. How sure are you that Raheem Morris is going to be fired?
I do not see any scenario where Raheem Morris is coaching the Atlanta Falcons next year. Um, Penix didn't really move forward. Um, Kyle Pitts didn't move forward. Drake London moved forward, then he got hurt. Um, they don't. They still haven't fully unlocked Bijan Robinson. Not even close. The defense was pretty good the first 6-8 weeks. That hasn't held up. It looked like it might be a year where they had a consistent pass rush. Again, first 6-8 weeks it was decent. It hasn't held up. Um, it was a bad staff, making Ike Hilliard walk the plank early in the year when it should have been Zach Robinson. Um, if they would have had the balls to make a call on Zach Robinson after year one and realize he's not up for the job and gone and gotten a real offensive coordinator, things might have gone differently. Um, that'll be an interesting job to see what direction Arthur Blank goes in. Uh, Raheem Morris is about as close as he's come to hiring an experienced head coach. I mean, it had been a while since Rob was running the Bucks, and he obviously did that very early in his career. But he had at least done it before. Generally it's been the Mike Smith, Dan Quinn guy. Not affable, nice guys, players, coaches, not really hard asses. Um, that's what he's gravitated to. And he's hired from the defensive side of the ball way more than a lot of other uh, owners. I tend to think that's going to change. And I tend to think it's all about Penix now. And I tend to think the next coach of the Atlanta Falcons is a QB whisperer, QB guru type.
I do want to go into the AFC North now, because I think there's four teams that we could quite honestly talk about with
Oh, yeah.
coaches and uncertainty. We'll start with the obvious, and we'll go to Cleveland with Kevin Stefanski. Now, he had 2 years. He's won 11 games twice and had some success in those years. And when the offense is clicking, it's very good. They have the defense working well under Schwartz, Myles Garrett, great player. But in every other season, the offense has continued to drag that team down. And he's the front of that. He's the play caller until halfway through the year he shifts it over and puts it on the offensive coordinator, to which we don't see much improvement. To you right now, because I know you'll get into it, but you can make the argument that the roster construction is the issue and their decision of quarterback has been the issue. Well, all of a sudden, the handling of Shador and how Dylan Gabriel's gone, that's kind of fallen on Stefanski. And I know Andrew Barry has his hands on that, and so does Haslam. But
Yeah.
where are you on Stefanski and how much job security he has?
I think Kevin Stefanski would love to get the hell out of there, and I think he has for a couple of years now. I don't know that Jimmy Haslam sees a lot of options out there that he thinks are absolutely better than Kevin Stefanski. Um, and I don't know how I believe in his own way, Stefanski has tried to sort of angle to get out of there, specifically by the way he's handled the quarterback position. And maybe that comes to a further head with, Deshaun Watson back now quasi practicing or whatever. Maybe that's another, potential widget that Stefanski could work to try to um, incur the ire of that billionaire. But I still wouldn't rule out a trade. Again, I don't know. He's had difficulty getting guys he wanted to take that job numerous times, including a point in time when Haslam really tried hard to trade for Jim Harbaugh when he was in San Francisco. So I think he'd have to have a bird in hand. But if he did have a sense um, that someone he believed could step in and do the job right away, not someone who's going to take a year or two to develop as a head coach. If you believe that guy was out there and he could replace Stefanski, he's obviously thought about coaching trades before, and I do think he could probably do fairly well trading Stefanski. Um, I think Kevin Stefanski would love to be the next head coach of the New York Giants. Um, but it would take a lot of parties to obviously make that happen.
Now, we'll get to the two longest tenure coaches in the NFL in a minute because that's a conversation that can go on for a while and interesting at that. But real quickly on Zach Taylor, Cincinnati, for the first few weeks, especially without Burrow, it looked like they were absolutely done. Zach Taylor's seat was on fire. We all know that. But all of a sudden, since Joe Burrow has come back, I know we're going to get into it in a little bit, their playoff chances, and they're right in it. But the defense is still pathetic, and they moved on from Anarumo, and you bring in Al Golden, and that still just really hasn't fixed anything. I know it's a personnel issue, and when you have your quarterback saying, you're going to pay my guys, and we're going to keep it that way, it's hard to kind of move away from what he wants. But at the same time, it's got to fall on Zach Taylor's plate. Ownership, I know they don't want to make the change when he still has years on the contract,
Yeah,
but could we
exactly.
see Zach Taylor? Could they move on from him?
I don't think so at this point. Um, I'd be really surprised. It's not in Mike Brown's DNA. There's no guarantees that Zach Taylor's immediately getting a head coaching job. If he goes in as somebody's coordinator for a year, Mike Brown, and they want to pay him $2 million to be the coordinator, Mike Brown's on the hook for, he'd be owing Zach Taylor more money not to coach his team than he'd be willing to pay probably the next guy per year to coach his team. I'd be really surprised. They've won a lot of games with Joe Burrow. They've got to keep Joe Burrow healthy. That's obvious. Um, the defense has shown some signs of life. So yeah, Ben, I would be surprised if Mike Brown was out in the marketplace interviewing head coaches.
Now, two guys, as we said, we're going to get to Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh. Very hot topic this week with the big rivalry game, and this being, quite honestly, maybe the most important game of the NFL season to this point with the way that that conference is going, and then you have the division. Only one team's probably going to get in, and right now it's looking like it's between those two, but Cincinnati is looking on and could maybe potentially make a run at this if they can win out and beat Baltimore again next week. But for now, we'll start with Tomlin because that's very hot conversation right now. All of Pittsburgh has turned on him. They're starting rumors about his family that's just made up. They're doing whatever they can, and these are people who are highly followed. Like pretty disgusting things going on. But that fan base wants out. Now, me and Cordell were on tonight, and at 7:30, we're taking phone calls. We get a call from somebody in Pittsburgh who calls in to tell us they wish the Ravens luck. It was unusual. They wish the Ravens luck. They want Tomlin out that bad. They're rooting for the Ravens this week. They're rooting for the Ravens to win the division. And they're going to wear Lamar Jackson shirts. It was insane. I mean, the guy was from Pittsburgh, too.
Yeah.
You could hear the accent. That fan base is completely turned on him. The few that were still left over and still wanting him are now completely out. They're booing Renegade, which you never, ever hear at that stadium. Where do you sit on Tomlin? And do you think it will be him getting fired? Do you think it will be a mutual agreement to walk on? How's it going to end?
I think that if Mike Tomlin is at a point in time where he's willing to explore what's out there, then his representatives will have no problem getting a sense of the various owners and it's academic institutions who would be interested in having him coach football for them. Um, if it's an NFL job, if Mike Tomlin, and I know in the past he's kind of poo pooed the idea of going to college, but who knows? But if he wants to stay in the NFL, then I think he'll be traded. Um, and I think if they were going to trade Mike Tomlin, they'd absolutely want to trade him to the other conference. And I think the New York Giants would be willing to pay a pretty substantial ransom to get him. Um, and the Giants haven't had a head coach with, I mean, a real resume since Parcells. And when they hired Parcells, he didn't have a real resume. I mean, I, I, I like, are you going to keep hiring McAdoo types? Or are you going to keep hiring, um, like, I don't know, Ben. I just think that could really be a home run for them. And you'd have to pay a heavy first round draft pick price, but they've got the quarterback. They got value in where they drafted the quarterback. So they could almost look at that as, he was 2 first round picks in one. You could sell it a bunch of different ways, but Mike Tomlin knows how to build a staff. Their coaching staffs in their totality have really been lacking. Um, I don't think they can try another career assistant, first time guy. Um, I don't think you could bring in someone like Mike McCarthy, who just basically failed. I mean, he won some meaningless regular season games, didn't really beat good teams. He just got fired in your division not that long ago. Like I don't see it. So yeah, I'm not sure the Steelers are going to win more games than they lose for the first time in forever. And I'm not sure that Mike Tomlin is feeling the love and feeling like he's appreciated. And Mike Tomlin's got great relationships throughout all of the coaching ranks. And I'm sure Mike Tomlin at owners' meetings and combines in years past has had a beer or two with Andy Reid, and they've chuckled about the way Andy Reid was run out of Philadelphia and how that's worked out for him since, or um, even talking to a Jim Harbaugh about the way they kind of soured him on him in San Francisco, and then the way that's worked out for him since. Like, nothing lasts forever in the NFL, and Mike Tomlin's been there a lifetime. And yes, that's a very different vibe in that town, and that's a mom and pop shop. The Rooney family isn't a conglomerate that owns, you know, uh, all. It's not a corporation, and it's very old school, and they do respond to their consumers. And right now, their consumers are staying away from the game, or they're booing, or they're turning their back on the product and the game day presentation and all of that. And let's face it, the owner came out and set a standard for what this season was supposed to be, and the Steelers may fall well, well short of that. So no, he will not be fired, but he wouldn't have to be fired.
Lastly, John Harbaugh, the guy leading the Ravens. Listen, I'll start this off by saying there's not a lot of times where I, completely go in with the public and I'm all in. But the Mike McDonald thing in real time, I was saying move on from Harbaugh, and it's an awkward thing. You would have had to, it would have taken some balls to do it. They didn't end
Woo.
up doing it. Mike walks, goes to Seattle. Have not been the biggest fan of John. I'll just be completely honest. Don't really like him. I think he's underachieved a lot, and I think he was led by a very good team. Now he's won. And you can do much worse. I fully agree with that. The floor for John Harbaugh is high. He's going to get a lot out of his guys usually, but at the same time, 8 saved his job. And we've seen it,
Sure.
and he's continued to lift John up in these spots. And in weeks like the Houston game, now you can point the blame in the front office and a lot of other ways, but to me, the players have kind of soured on it. And I don't know that they fully like what he's selling them anymore. And they seem kind of
Yeah.
uninterested because year after year, they come up short. John's back, and he's continuing to push his message. And John has his strengths and weaknesses, but he does have the doghouse, and he does have a lot of guys that don't really see eye to eye with him. We have the Marcus Peters of the world on the sideline ready to take him down and having to guys having to hold him back. So John, if they make the playoffs, I don't see gone. But if they were to miss the playoffs this year and lose the division and have it finish as ugly as it's been, do you see a world where John Harbaugh's fired?
Well, it really there's only one person. There's an audience of one here that he's performing for, and that's Steve Bisciotti. Um, and look, Steve Bisciotti doesn't speak much anymore. A little bit of a recluse, but when he has opened his mouth in recent years, he's made it clear this team isn't staying in his family. He's not doing this forever. Um, Seems to me he's not maybe having as much fun as he used to. He said he has things in life he wants to enjoy, beyond owning this team. And he knows that he's going to make a ridiculous amount of money when he sells the team. And he said he's closer to selling the team than enjoying uh, being their owner for another 8 years or 10 years or some long time span. So I don't know at this stage of the game that he thinks he's going to reboot with a new coach and a new GM or whatever and see it through long enough to actually enjoy the spoils of that. And when someone's that close to selling something they bought for $700 million for upwards of $6 billion, I think they'd probably just assume let the other person, like, I can hand you a head coach who's under contract. Let's say he decides he wants to sell the team, and that process might take a year. He just signed Harbaugh to another extension. Hey, you've got John Harbaugh signed for an NHL and NFL terms a reasonable amount of money. And if you want him to stick around, you've got him. And if you don't, go do your own thing, and he'll get another job in a minute, and you'll get the offsets, and you won't have to pay him a dime. But I don't know that he's going to go out and try to find someone who he thinks is better than John Harbaugh to win right now with this team. I don't think he's there, and I don't think he's getting there. And I think it would take a real seismic collapse in not just like losing, but the way they lose. The team would have to be visibly, I think, quitting on him. You can look at their schedule and say that's possible. If this was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I'd probably feel a little differently about it. But I think Bisciotti's closer to selling the team than he is starting over with people he doesn't know, who he hasn't built up relationships with, and try to win one more time that way.
Yeah, I would. Well, I don't have a lot of thought, but if they don't, and again, right now this team is not winning Super Bowl. I mean, it would take Lamar
No.
Jackson putting on 3 different capes and also getting to the passer on defense. But like the whole, and you guys really emphasized it on your radio show, the Super Bowl bust or busting. First off, I've been disliking John for a few years now. I think it's been time, and it's again. I said before, like he's had success and he's won and things have gone well, but I don't know that he is the guy now, and I'm not sure that his quarterback feels that way, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure that a lot of guys on the team feel that way. And that shows as years go on. I feel like, but if not now, like it was 2023. How are they not going to win the Super Bowl? How are they not going to make it? Well, Kansas City walks into Baltimore and punks them around. They weren't ready to play from the jump, and that's how it goes. John, to start in the summer, immediately pushed back, and you emphasized it about where he is. But, like, to me, what is that mindset, right? Like, you should want everything should be all in on winning a Super Bowl. At
Yeah.
this point, with this quarterback at his age, you're not getting prime Lamar anymore. And quite honestly, last year's Lamar Jackson, we might never see again. And it's not a
Yeah.
knock to Lamar Jackson, but he was just that damn good. And if you don't get that again, with the way that this roster is built and how long it would take to fix their deficiencies and all of those things, how are you ever going to win a Super Bowl? But instead, you have the head coach spewing that no, that's not that important. What's important is how we are. How can you like just talking just to talk and him giving a 3 hour long answer to a question that should be yes, this year is the year we need to win the Super Bowl. I've been here this long. I haven't won a Super Bowl since Ray Lewis and Ed Reed were playing. That's an issue to me. So I don't understand the thought process behind where he is and what they have in their quarterback now, which we're still going to have to deal with probably 4 months of that contract negotiation, and it's going to get ugly
Oh yeah.
again. And who knows how this one will finish. So for me, if they don't win a Super Bowl, which right now it looks like a 90% chance that won't happen, how does he come back? I don't get it.
Yeah. Look, We talked about Chris Greer keeping his job as long as he did, right? Like the interpersonal dynamics and that degree of comfort. And when Steve Bisciotti puts his head down at night, there's a lot of things that he sees that I'm sure he doesn't like, and there's a lot of warts that have been allowed to grow and fester that I'm sure he wishes were nipped in the bud. But he knows he's got a guy coaching his team who could go out and get a job in 5 seconds. And I don't know that there's going to be a lot of people that he's going to feel like he knows he can do the job. He knows he can put out fires. He knows he can recruit coaches. He knows he can build a staff. Like, I just don't think he wants to find out with somebody else unless there's overwhelming evidence that the well is completely, tainted here. And I don't think we're going to get to that stage. Maybe we do.
Well, I'll put it out here now. I'm a push for Marcus Freeman. Now, Marcus Freeman, there's a lot of talk, right, about you want an offensive mind with Lamar Jackson, and I get all that. Like Marcus Freeman's got the defensive coordinator background, but they love this leader of men thing and the leadership that John brings. Like
they also love
Freeman
that program. That's an interesting call because they
Yeah.
love scouting that program. They always have. They've been attracted to that program. They always have, and you could take it back, beyond just Eric DeCosta, their current GM. Like they've had a little bit of a fetish with that program. That's a really interesting name.
Yeah, it's what like when we were on today with Cordell, like someone calls in, they're like, "Well, who do you want?" And I immediately point to that. Now you can also talk if you want to go coordinators and all that. Like I don't know that there's a coordinator out there. There's no Ben Johnson that's absolutely saving a team and is going to be calling plays. And John Harbaugh doesn't do that either. He's the leader and he kind of lets his coordinators roll. But I just feel like Marcus Freeman has kind of that background that they love, the leader of men and the stern guy that could come in and gain respect from players. He's also just 39 years old. Like he might be able to relate to them a little bit more. Maybe he can keep some guys on staff. We already know the Notre Dame background with Kyle Hamilton, so I don't know. I thought that that would be interesting, but that's not a name that's been gaining as much traction this year as he was last year when the Bears job was still open. And I know a lot of things pointed to Ben Johnson, but I haven't heard as much with Marcus Freeman this year. Again, maybe that's because we haven't seen that playoff run yet that he did go on last year and have that success. But I don't know. I just feel like some of that stern leadership guy in college because
I could see DeCosta pushing that name to like if it got to this stage. If Bisciotti was thinking about it and he was going to keep that regime intact in the front office, I could see that being the kind of name.
Now,
who could be an upgrade, or who could be an upgrade after he gets his feet under him a year from now, or whatever. Like that's an interesting name that you bring up because I could see that being one of the few that would get his attention. Maybe.
Where would you stand on that? How would you feel as going to that versus going to a LaFleur? The brother LaFleur, the coordinator, or going to Kubiak, like, would you be more interested in Marcus Freeman or going to a coordinator?
No, I want someone who can do the job, who understands what it's like in that case to have 90 kids looking up at him in good times and bad times, and him having to be the universal sort of voice and the end all and be all in terms of that program. No, I don't think you want to find out if this guy's just a leader of an offense or a leader of a defense, but can't truly be a uniter. I would think Bisciotti, having been in the league as long as he is and being at this stage of his tenure of ownership, would want someone who's won already at some high level as a head coach, whether that's, pro or college.